Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World. I'm your host Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Chinese President Xi Jinping has welcomed Russian President Vladimir Putin to Beijing for talks that are meant to display the strength of a partnership both leaders says is reshaping the global balance of power. Coming just days after Xi hosted Donald Trump, the meeting highlights China's ambition to position itself at the center of world diplomacy. Joining us today on TVP World to assess what this summit means for China, Russia, and the West is François Godement, Special Advisor at Institut Montaigne. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello.
So looking at this, right, and looking at this meeting between Xi and Vladimir Putin, what message do you think that both leaders are trying to send by meeting at Beijing at this particular moment?
I think, of course, it's a balancing game and at the same time a show of China's supposed role and influence over many issues. But I think Vladimir Putin this time is coming in a very different position from previously. He's going to be more a supplicant than an equal. There's been so much going on with Donald Trump that, by contrast, his visit appears to be more simple. We hear, I don't know if this is going to be proven or not, that the famous second gas pipeline to China that's been on the agenda for years is still not going to be signed this time, and it would be very important, of course, for Russia's financial resources. There have been rumors. The U.S. has leaked previously. The U.S. press has leaked that Xi Jinping would have told Donald Trump that Putin might come one day to regret having invaded Ukraine. There's no way, of course, for me to say whether this is a rumor or a fact. The Russian press has come out with some criticism of China, which is very rare in the very days before Putin's trip on May 15, exactly. So this is quite a new type of meeting.
Right, a very new type of meeting indeed. And well, this is actually the same sentiment was echoed by one of our guests earlier, Mr. Tomasz Kaprovich, editor-in-chief of Respublika Nova. Now, in his opinion, he's thinking that the ceremonial comparison, like you mentioned, how the contrast with Trump's reception and that of Vladimir Putin's actually shows a very strong disadvantage to Russia, and even go on to say that it does look like while the United States remains China's most important adversary, Russia is becoming more and more of a vassal state of China. Do you think that that statement is overstating it, or are we actually seeing Russia becoming somewhat of a junior partner to China?
Being a junior partner to China is exactly the kind of criticism that was issued in Moscow a few days ago by the press. So clearly there is fear. Whether the degrees of pomp vary, probably to some extent because Donald Trump was afforded a visit to Xi Jinping's private residence, but Mr. Putin had been there once. Yes, the picture you show of Putin being made to watch at a picture of the two leaders together, it's not the same as the kind of tribute that has been paid to Donald Trump. But I wouldn't read too much of that. I would rather, coming back on Donald Trump's visit, say two things. First, that Donald Trump did not improvise, and his improvisations happen from time to time, not this time. Certainly not on Taiwan, for example. And that there was absolutely no attempt from the Chinese side to minimize him or to find any detail that would not be respectful. So clearly, China is satisfied with its new status that it thinks it has gained as being equal to America. True or false, this is the impression they want to project, and it has been projected through the meeting.
Right. And coming back to Vladimir Putin, though, do you think that this summit secured anything for him? Is it mostly about symbolism, or did it actually produce any meaningful strategic outcomes?
Look, the most important thing for Vladimir Putin is the price of oil that's sold to China and the quantity of gas that might be sold. And we don't know much about that, but we know the Chinese are hard bargainers. We also know that Donald Trump says he extracted from Xi Jinping a commitment to buy more oil from the U.S. directly. replacing some of the lost oil in the Gulf or from Iran. So that doesn't look too good. But what do we know of the backstage cooperation between Russia and China? What about dual-use goods? What about resupplying on a number of issues? It's very hard to tell. What about eventual coordination on Iran or disagreement on what should be done? Because again, Mr. Xi Jinping's support to Iran has appeared to be quite tepid. So it's very, very hard to say.
Right. Speaking of China, Russia's involvement in Iran, of course, that's one of the topics being touched upon. Do you think the Ukraine is also in the conversation, or where do you think China's interest lies?
I think China looks at the Ukraine situation, keeps a formally equal balance, but of course, in reality, it has been closer to Russia. It's not, let's say, exercising a lot of efforts on this currently. It's completely focused on the US. And on Iran, the way Iran is being treated is not exactly as an ally, because even before meeting or at the beginning of the meeting with Mr. Putin, Xi Jinping said he wanted a stop to hostilities from all sides. Of course, he doesn't single out, especially Iran, but just as Chinese spokesmen have said previously, that they wanted normal situation of circulation in the Gulf, and that obviously targets Iran as much as the blockade from the US. So on the whole, I think we're seeing a China that's assertive in status, but not so assertive currently. And clearly the economic situation, the need to arrive to some form of trade and investment agreement with the US probably plays a role. That's important for China. It depends a lot on its exports.
All right, definitely so. One of the things I also want to touch upon is, this repeated call for a, quote, multipolar world order. Now, how serious should the West interpret these messaging? And do you think it's anything realistic, or are they just hyping themselves up?
Multipolarity is, of course, a familiar slogan in Chinese parlance, but it's not very effectively followed by action. China is more opportunistic. If you care to read some of the language that's been used, both by China's foreign minister after the meeting with Donald Trump, or by one of the main think tanks of China that issued a paper on what it calls strategic stability that has become a motto for the relationship with the US, you'll see almost no reference to multipolarity. You'll see reference to chaos and to the need for those two large powers to have more cooperation to help reduce the level of chaos, to cool down things, as Donald Trump might say and did say about Taiwan-China relationship. So this is not to say that China won't repeat the same slogans with Mr. Putin, but right now the balance is tipping in the other way. And I would rather say that what Russia has to fear and what others have to fear at another level, even Europeans, and when it comes to trade issues, is what you could call a G2. Trump repeated the word, and some of the stuff inside the description that's provided about strategic stability, its ambitions, look very much like a G2 with very little room for other people to participate in decisions.
Right, that is something alarming indeed. But going back to the Chinese and Russian connection with the war in Ukraine still ongoing, how much is Russia reliant on China right now? Is the technology, we're also talking about, having a big customer of their energy as well. So does it mean that, Russia at this point is solely reliant on China?
They might be working at a cross-purpose on one issue, which is the price of oil. The war with Iran has a benefit for Russia, that it raises the price of oil and therefore raises the price of what's its main export. And, by contamination, it also raises the price of gas. China is a customer, not a producer. And China has other interests, and it's not good for China if China's other partners are constrained by high prices of oil and by less goods and services from China. China's economic health depends on the world ticking, on the world economy going well, because by now it's an export country, it's a surplus country. So I'm not sure the two necessarily see eye to eye. Of course, having said that, there remains the ideological solidarity, the issue of legitimacy of the regime, of non-interference by others into their domestic affairs, and they do have close partners, which I wouldn't describe as allies, neither North Korea nor Iran, but they are close partners, and it's not good for any of them to see them wiped off the map or defeated.
Right. How far do you think these ideological alignment can carry their relationship, seeing like Chinese do their business quite pragmatically?
It's on and off. I don't think it will disappear. Of course, it reached a high point since Xi Jinping gained power, and it was at a lower point when Deng Xiaoping was running things in China, and in fact started the equilibrium balance between relations with Russia and relations which was the Soviet Union, of course, and relations with the US. What worries me most in this situation is that the European factor doesn't seem to weigh much on China's policy, whether it's regarding Ukraine or whether it's regarding Iran, except on the economic side, again, on the commercial side. But Europe's geopolitical positions, don't seem to matter a lot. And this is a real issue, since we know that the Trump administration is not exactly wed to Europe and believes that Europe should take care of itself and would rather focus its efforts elsewhere.
All right, thank you so much for your input and insight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.